Millionaire discovers Maid dancing with his paralyzed daughter. What happens next will surprise you. When twilight fell over Florence, the city turned into a living painting, golden light caressing terracotta rooftops, dissolving into the calm waters of the Arno River like a final breath of day. Amid that beauty stood the Moretti Villa, solemn and timeless, a stone mansion with shuttered windows that hadn't been opened in years. Inside lived Luca Moretti, a renowned architectural restorer, a man who had lost the soul of his own life. Since the accident 2 years ago, the house had known no laughter, no music, only the faint ticking of a pendulum clock echoing through the cold halls. Elena, the woman he had loved beyond measure, was gone. The same crash had left their daughter Sophia, once a promising ballet dancer, confined to a wheelchair forever. From that day, the villa had become a museum of memories, where every object remained untouched, as if Elena might return at any moment. Luca still walked through the kitchen where she used to hum softly, through the parlor where she and Sophia once danced together, but he never dared to touch anything. He lived inside his grief, punishing himself in silence. By day, he buried himself in work, drawing until exhaustion numbed the ache. By night, he sat before unfinished blueprints, the glow of his desk lamp revealing a face worn by sorrow. Eyes fixed on some faraway place where the past refused to sleep. Sophia, now 12 years old, barely spoke to her father. She kept to her room upstairs, leaving only when necessary. Every therapy session ended the same way, in tears and silence. No doctor, no psychologist could reach her. Luca had hired the best specialists in Italy, but nothing changed. Her eyes remained empty, her spirit locked away. Some nights, Luca stood by her door, hearing the faint creak of her wheelchair rolling across the floor. He wanted to knock, to say something, anything, but his hand always fell back to his side. He was afraid to see in her eyes the reflection of Elena, the woman he could not save. The villa stood still in the darkness of Florence, moonlight slipping through the curtains to illuminate a family portrait on the living room wall. In it, Elena was smiling radiantly, Sophia twirling midair, and Luca behind them, watching with pride and love. Now that photograph was only a silent witness to a broken family. Luca knew he had rebuilt countless cathedrals, restored crumbling stones to life. Yet he could do nothing for the ruins of his own heart. It was a rainy Thursday night when Luca Moretti came home later than usual. Endless meetings had drained his energy, his mind heavy with unfinished blueprints. The iron gates closed behind him with a metallic sigh that echoed through the damp night. As he walked down the hallway, Luca stopped. From somewhere deep within the villa came a sound he hadn't heard in years, not the ticking of the clock, nor the whisper of the wind, but something human, alive. It was the sound of a guitar, gentle and human, woven with a soft voice humming a melody. A tune from Argentina, warm, distant, and alive, spread through the stone walls that had long forgotten what music felt like. Luca frowned. He had told the staff never to disturb Sophia after 8 o'clock. It was already 9:30. His heart quickened as he followed the music down the corridor, toward the grand salon, a room that had remained in darkness for 2 years. The door was slightly ajar. Through the narrow opening, Luca saw a sight that made him forget to breathe. Bathed in golden lamplight, Sophia sat in her white wheelchair, her arms moving gracefully to the rhythm. Across from her stood Amelia Torres, the Argentine therapist who had joined them a few weeks earlier, a woman Luca had barely exchanged more than polite words with. Amelia held Sophia's hands, guiding her gently through the dance. Their fingers intertwined, moving with a softness that spoke a language beyond words. Her dark hair was tied neatly, her white linen blouse swayed with each motion. Her eyes glowed with calm warmth as she whispered encouragements that seemed to cradle Sophia's fragile soul. "Very good, my little dancer. Don't fear the rhythm. Let your heart lead." Her voice was low and melodic, wrapped in a tenderness born of distant memories. Sophia smiled, a real smile, radiant, pure, alive, the kind Luca thought he would never see again. In that instant, it felt as if the entire house had come back to life. Her quiet laughter mingled with the melody and the soft tapping of the guitar strings, forming a sacred harmony that filled every corner of the room. Luca leaned against the wall, frozen. He didn't dare step inside. He was afraid that if he did, the spell would break. From where he stood, Sophia was no longer the motionless, broken girl she had become. She was the child who once loved to dance, now reborn through grace. When the music ended, Amelia bent down and placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "See," she said, "you can still fly, only with different wings." Sophia laughed through her tears and threw her arms around her. Luca turned away, his hands trembling. Something deep inside him shifted, something he hadn't felt in years: warmth, wonder, and the faint echo of hope. That night, as he stood by the window in his study, the melody still lingered in his mind, along with Sophia's smile. And beneath the quiet murmur of Florence, Luca realized that the silence of his home had finally been broken, not by sound, but by life itself. Since that night, the Moretti villa had changed. In the mornings, Luca could hear soft laughter drifting down from the second floor. In the afternoons, the sound of a guitar or the low, melodic voice of Amelia Torres filled the halls. The house, once a tomb of silence, had begun to breathe again, slowly, gently, warmly. Sophia was different now. She practiced willingly, spoke more, even helped with small chores around the house. Each time Luca saw his daughter smile, his heart tightened, joy mixed with unease. His daughter was healing, yes, but through the hands of a woman he barely knew. Amelia lived in the villa with quiet grace. She was polite, discreet, never intrusive. Every morning she brewed tea for Sophia and spoke in a voice as soft as wind. Sometimes Luca would linger in the hallway, listening to them talk, and feel a strange calm settle inside him. Yet with each passing day, curiosity crept deeper into him. Who was this woman? How did she understand the body's limits with such precision? And why did her eyes, in their moments of stillness, carry a sorrow so deep, as if she too lived with wounds that never healed? One afternoon, while Sophia was asleep, Luca passed by the music room. On the desk lay an open notebook, pages filled with notes about movement therapy. Feel before you move. Heal before you teach. At the bottom of the page, a single line was handwritten. "For my mother, who taught me to dance even in the dark." Luca froze. Her mother? Who was she? A dancer, perhaps? Something stirred in his memory. The name Torres felt familiar, but he couldn't place it. That evening at dinner, Luca watched Amelia closely. She was explaining to Sophia a recovery technique called the dance of breath, where patients learn to feel their own breathing as a form of movement. Her tone was steady, filled with emotion, yet every time she mentioned "my mother," her eyes shifted away. Her composure, the grace of her gestures, the quiet control of space, it all revealed something unmistakable. Amelia wasn't just a therapist. She was an artist, someone who understood loss and rebirth on a level far deeper than words could describe. That night, Luca couldn't sleep. In his study, he stared at a photo of Elena, his late wife, once an amateur choreographer, and thought of Amelia. Two women, two souls, both bearing light born from pain. A vague unease grew inside him, not fear, but the need to know. The next morning, Luca called Marco Rossi, his old college friend, now an investigative journalist. His voice was calm but firm. "Marco, I need your help. Find out everything you can about a woman named Amelia Torres, as soon as possible." Outside his window, Florence glowed beneath the setting sun. But within Luca, another wind had begun to stir, the wind of doubt and the whisper of a truth waiting to be uncovered. 3 days after the call, Marco Rossi met Luca at a small cafe by the Arno River. The morning light over Florence was clear as glass, yet Marco's eyes were heavy. He placed a thick envelope on the table without a word. "There are things you should prepare yourself for," he said quietly, more serious than usual. Luca opened the envelope. Inside were copies of documents, newspaper clippings, and photos, all bearing the same name, Amelia Torres. The first page was an old article from Buenos Aires, dated 2018. Tragic accident on Highway 9. Legendary dancer Elena Torres dies. Her daughter, Amelia Torres, was behind the wheel. Luca's hand trembled slightly as he read on. According to the report, one stormy night, Amelia, then 27, was driving her mother, Elena Torres, a celebrated performer of Teatro Colón, home after a show. In a single moment of distraction, the car skidded off the road. Elena died instantly. Amelia survived with injuries and a wound that would never heal. A short note beneath the article made Luca's chest tighten. After the accident, Amelia was sentenced to 3 months in prison for involuntary manslaughter. He sat in silence, eyes fixed on the river glinting under the sun. The melody he had once heard Amelia hum, Mi Pequeña Bailarina, echoed faintly in his mind. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. "She killed her own mother," Luca whispered. Marco nodded slowly. "An accident, Luca, but she never forgave herself. After prison, she left Argentina. She studied music and movement therapy, volunteered in rehabilitation centers. They call her the woman who makes people dance again." Luca said nothing for a long time. The river breeze flipped through the documents, revealing a photograph of Amelia on stage beside her mother. 2 women so alike that the light seemed to unite them into a single reflection of sorrow and grace. Marco lit a cigarette and asked softly, "I thought you should know, but what will you do now?" Luca's voice was low, steady. "I don't know, but I need to hear it from her." That evening, Amelia was cleaning up the therapy room when Luca entered. The dim light fell across his face, calm, unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. Amelia looked up. In his eyes, she saw something unexpected, not anger, not judgment, but a deep, searching sadness. Luca placed the envelope on the table. "I know." She froze. Her hand gripped the edge of the desk. She didn't need to ask what he meant. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Amelia took a slow breath and lifted her gaze. "Yes, I was the driver. I killed my mother, though I never meant to." Her voice did not tremble, but it carried an ocean of guilt. She told him everything, that her mother had just finished a performance, that they had argued in the car, about dreams, about pride, about love. When her mother began to cry, Amelia turned to apologize. Just a second, and everything ended. "After prison," she continued softly, "I made a promise to her that the rest of my life would be spent helping those trapped in broken bodies to dance again." Tears slid silently down her cheeks, but her smile remained, the fragile, luminous smile of someone who was healing others to redeem herself. Luca stood motionless, unable to speak. He looked at her, not as an employee, but as a human soul carrying a pain deeper than his own. Finally, he said quietly. He took a breath. "Come back tomorrow, Amelia. Sophia needs you. And maybe, so do I. No matter your past, you brought life back into this house and into me." As he turned to leave, the light caught the tears still shining in Amelia's eyes. She didn't know whether to cry or to smile. From behind the closing door, she heard his footsteps pause for a brief moment. And she knew then that he had not turned away from her. The next morning, the Moretti villa was filled with sunlight. Golden beams filtered through the olive branches, spreading delicate ribbons of light across the old terracotta floor. The air felt different, lighter, fragile, as if holding its breath. Amelia Torres arrived early, carrying a small bouquet of lavender. She didn't know why, perhaps to remind herself that something gentle still existed in the world. When she entered the therapy room, Luca was already there, standing by the window, his hands folded across his chest. No greeting, only the silence of two people who had both known too much pain. "Thank you for coming," Luca said quietly. His voice was low, tired, but calm. "Sophia's waiting." Amelia nodded and walked to the large room at the end of the hall. Sophia was sitting by the window, her eyes brighter than before, but still carrying a quiet sadness. When she saw Amelia, a small smile appeared on her lips. "I heard," Sophia said softly. "Dad doesn't know I was outside the door last night." Amelia froze. Shame and fear washed over her. "Sophia." "It's okay," the girl interrupted gently. "I just wanted to say, I understand." She took a deep breath. "You know, the night my mother died, we argued too. I said awful things to her, and then she was gone before I could say I'm sorry." Silence filled the room. The sunlight caught the tears glimmering in Sophia's hair, turning them into crystal. Amelia knelt down and took her hands. "You're not the only one who carries guilt," she said. "We've all hurt the ones we love, but those who've gone, they don't want us to die with them." Sophia looked up through her tears. "Do you think my mother forgives me?" "She doesn't need to," Amelia whispered, her voice breaking. "Real love doesn't demand forgiveness. It only asks that we live and turn our pain into something beautiful." From the corner of the room, Luca stood watching silently. He hadn't heard his daughter speak this much in years. Every word, every tear carved into him, but somehow it soothed him too. When Amelia guided Sophia to the piano, Luca stepped closer. He placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for letting you carry it all alone." Sophia smiled faintly. "You were hurting too, Dad." And in that moment, three souls, each wounded in their own way, stood together in the same light. There was no line between healer and healed. There were only hearts learning to forgive themselves. That evening, Luca invited Amelia to stay for dinner. The meal was simple, yet warm in a way that felt new. Sophia spoke about her exercises, her dream to dance again even if only with her upper body. Each time she spoke, Luca and Amelia exchanged glances. Glances filled not with doubt anymore, but with quiet gratitude. When Sophia went to rest, Luca stepped out onto the balcony, gazing at Florence glowing under the sunset. Amelia joined him, holding a cup of tea. For a while, they said nothing. "You saved Sophia," Luca finally said. "I don't know how to thank you." Amelia shook her head gently. "No, she saved me. When I see her smile, it feels like my mother is smiling through her." Luca looked at her for a long time. In his eyes, for the first time, there was no distance, only the tender understanding of a man who had begun to truly see a woman. "You know, Amelia," he said quietly, "I used to believe that what's broken can never be fixed. But today, I'm not so sure anymore." Amelia turned toward him, eyes glimmering with surprise. Then she lowered her gaze and whispered, "Sometimes the cracks are just where the light comes in." They stood in silence. Somewhere inside the house, Sophia began to play her guitar, a slow, tender melody, full of life. And in that moment, Luca realized that forgiveness doesn't just save others. It saves the one who gives it. From that day on, the atmosphere inside the Moretti villa changed completely. No more heavy silences, no more lonely wheels echoing down the halls. Instead, there was music, laughter, and the rhythm of life breathing again through every corner of the house. Amelia began a special therapy program for Sophia. She called it Wings of Light. It wasn't just rehabilitation. It was a dance performance built from emotion and truth, where every movement told a story, a journey from darkness to light. Each morning, the grand living room became their rehearsal stage. White curtains were drawn open so sunlight could flood across the wooden floor. Sophia sat in the center, her arms raised, eyes closed. Amelia stood behind her, guiding each breath, each motion of her upper body. "Feel the air pass through you," Amelia whispered. "Breathe in the pain. Breathe out the light." Luca often stood silently at the doorway. He no longer interrupted. He just watched. Sometimes he sketched, not ancient buildings this time, but the graceful motions of his daughter bathed in sunlight. Each line, each shadow felt like a heartbeat slowly returning to life. Now and then, Sophia would glance at him with a playful grin. "Dad, did I do it right this time?" And Luca could only smile, a real smile, one he hadn't worn in years. One afternoon, as golden light slanted through the windows, Amelia sat beside Luca in the garden. On the table between them lay his drafts for the lighting design of the performance he was helping her create. "You know," Amelia said, watching a butterfly land on a flower pot, "sometimes I think, if my mother were still alive, she'd smile seeing me teach people to dance without their legs." Luca set his pen down. "She'd be proud," he said softly, "because her daughter turned loss into a miracle." Amelia smiled, a genuine one this time, no longer shadowed by grief. "I think we're all learning to do that," she replied. "You, me, Sophia, turning brokenness into art." Luca said nothing, but his gaze lingered on her. In her eyes, he saw a glimmer of Elena, his late wife, who once believed that every wound can dance if there's enough light. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew that something new was quietly blooming between them, like a seed watered by gratitude and understanding. 2 months passed. The performance, Wings of Light, began to take shape. Luca designed the entire stage and lighting for the villa's grand hall, transforming what was once a monument of grief into a cathedral of hope. Sophia practiced tirelessly. She no longer hid her legs or avoided mirrors. Instead, she used her arms, shoulders, and gaze to tell her story. Amelia was her guide, her spark, her compass. She helped Sophia find her heartbeat again through motion and music. "Don't try to be perfect," Amelia said. "Be honest. Truth is always more beautiful." Luca, too, became part of the rehearsals. He no longer stayed in the shadows. He joined in. Amelia taught him simple steps for the final scene. At first he was clumsy, awkward, but each time Sophia laughed, each time Amelia adjusted his hand with a gentle touch, his heart stirred, a rhythm he thought he had lost forever. One evening, after a long rehearsal, the three of them sat on the wooden floor, laughing through their exhaustion. Sophia leaned her head against Amelia's shoulder. Luca looked at the two women before him, two souls destiny had sent to stitch his life back together. "Dad," Sophia murmured, "I think Mom is watching us, and she must be happy." Luca took her hand and nodded. His gaze shifted to Amelia. She smiled, the soft lamplight glimmering in her brown eyes like drops of honey. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the faint strumming of a guitar played from a small speaker, the same melody Amelia had hummed the night she first danced with Sophia. And under the gentle light of that room, Luca understood. Rebirth doesn't always come from miracles. Sometimes it begins with a song, and someone brave enough to walk through the darkness with you. 3 months later, Villa Moretti in Florence had changed completely. The once somber mansion, filled with echoes of grief, had been transformed into a small, radiant theater where a golden light danced upon ancient stone walls and the faint echo of violins seemed to breathe with the air. 50 velvet chairs lined the floor, the scent of orange blossoms and beeswax candles filling the hall. In the center, a temporary stage shimmered like the promise of a miracle. That night was the premiere of Wings of Light, a dance dedicated to Amelia Moretti and the symbolic rebirth of Sophia. The guests arrived in reverent silence. Old friends of Luca, the doctors who once stood helpless before his daughter's pain, and even a group of patients from the rehabilitation center where Amelia Torres had once poured her soul into helping others. Behind the curtains, Sophia sat in her silver wheelchair, wearing a soft blue gown that glimmered like water under moonlight. Her hair was gathered into a neat bun, her face radiant, not with makeup, but with faith and quiet happiness. Before her, Amelia, dressed in a black and silver dance gown, knelt to adjust the hem, her dark eyes holding the tenderness of a mother who had lost and somehow been reborn through love. "I've never felt so ready," Sophia whispered. "I know," Amelia smiled softly, "because tonight you're not dancing with your body, you're dancing with your heart." The stage doors opened. Luca Moretti entered in a classic black tuxedo, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from emotion. For weeks, the architect who once designed the domes of Florence had been learning simple dance steps, just so he could join his daughter in a performance that bore the name of hope. The host spoke gently. "Tonight, dear guests, you are not watching a performance. You are witnessing how love and willpower can turn pain into beauty." The music began. A guitar whispered alongside a piano, soft, haunting, pure. The spotlight found Amelia, stepping gracefully to the center of the stage. Each movement of her body told the story of a mother who once taught her child to dance, then departed this world, leaving behind not despair, but the rhythm of love. Then Sophia appeared, no longer the withdrawn girl bound by her wheelchair, but a dancer of the soul. Her arms carved grace into the air, each motion a silent cry of freedom. Her torso swayed with strength and forgiveness. And Amelia moved around her, sometimes guiding, sometimes following, so that the audience could witness a dialogue made not of words, but of light. One spirit wounded, the other healing. The audience was spellbound. They saw no pity, only art born from pain and courage. Tears fell quietly, not from sorrow, but from reverence for the sacred beauty unfolding before them. Then came the climax. Luca stepped onto the stage. His movements were clumsy, imperfect, but filled with paternal love. He joined the two women, one his daughter, the other her angel of light. And together they formed the portrait of a family reborn, the father as protector, the healer as guide, the daughter as light renewed. Amelia leaned close and whispered through the music, "Do you feel your mother here?" Sophia smiled, tears glistening. "Yes, she's here, in our hands, in our hearts, in every breath we take." The music swelled, then faded into silence. The three froze in their final pose, Sophia in the center, arms raised to the heavens, Amelia and Luca on either side, wings of protection, but never confinement. For a few sacred seconds, the theater was utterly still. Then came an explosion of applause, long, thunderous, tearful. People rose to their feet, weeping openly, as if they too had just been set free. When the applause softened, Amelia stepped to the microphone, her voice trembling. "What you have witnessed tonight is not just a performance. It is the beginning of a dream, La Casa della Luce, the House of Light, where we will help wounded souls rediscover the beauty of life through movement and love." Sophia continued, her voice glowing like the dawn over Florence. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over, but tonight I know it's only just beginning. And somewhere, I know my mother is dancing with us. Luca approached, taking their hands, his tone deep and warm. "I once thought wealth meant having everything, but now I know the truest wealth is the power to turn pain into love, despair into hope. The applause rose again, longer, deeper, like a prayer, and under the golden lights of the villa, 3 faces shone together, 3 souls once broken, now whole again. And just as the name of the dance promised, wings of light, they had learned to fly, not with their feet, but with hearts finally healed. The night of the performance had ended, but its echo lingered in the Moretti villa. Everyone had left. Only 3 people remained in the hall: Sophia, Luca, and Amelia. The stage lights were dim now, a thin mist of smoke drifting through the air, the last breath of a miracle that refused to fade. Sophia still wore her emerald dress, her cheeks flushed with joy. She turned to Amelia, then to her father, her smile playful. "I think Mom would be very proud of you both." Amelia bowed her head, eyes glistening. "No, Sophia, you're the one who made the miracle happen." Luca said nothing. He simply watched the 2 women before him. One had made him believe in life again. The other had made him believe in love. Inside him, something was blooming, quietly, steadily, like a flower breaking through after a long winter. "Dad," Sophia said softly, "do you know what I saw on stage tonight?" "What, sweetheart?" "I saw Mom smiling, but not just her. I saw you smiling too. A real smile." Luca chuckled gently, running a hand through her hair. Then his gaze found Amelia. She stood by the window where moonlight traced her shoulders, turning her dark hair silver. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for bringing Sophia back, and for bringing me back too." Amelia turned, her eyes filled with surprise, warmth, and something she couldn't quite name. The next morning, Florence was washed in a new light. The sky blushed pink over the Arno River, dew still clinging to the villa's flowers. Luca stepped out onto the terrace, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Amelia was already there, sitting on the stone steps, wrapped in a beige shawl, her gaze far away. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She smiled softly. "After nights like that, my heart doesn't rest easily." They sat side by side, saying nothing for a while. Birds began to sing, and the air filled with the scent of fresh coffee. Florence shimmered like a wordless symphony, and Luca realized he never wanted to forget this feeling. He turned to her. "Amelia," he said quietly, "if Elena could see me now, she'd probably smile." Amelia tilted her head. "Why?" "Because I finally learned how to live." She didn't speak, only looked at him, long and searching. Then Luca went on, his voice trembling like the morning breeze. "You taught me that rebirth isn't about forgetting the past. It's about learning to love again, even when the scars remain." He paused, their eyes meeting. "Amelia, I don't know when it began. Maybe that first night I heard your guitar. Maybe when I saw Sophia smile. But now I know for sure. I love you. No rush, no drama. Just 2 people sitting in the Florence dawn, where every shadow had dissolved into light." Amelia looked down, her lips trembling. "You don't have to," Luca interrupted gently, smiling. "I'm not saying it to be answered. I just want you to know. Some miracles don't happen to heal us. They happen to make us believe in love again." At that moment, Sophia appeared at the doorway, still in her pajamas, hair messy, but eyes sparkling. "Dad, if you don't kiss her, I will," she shouted, making Amelia laugh through her tears. Luca laughed too, stepped closer, and instead of a kiss, he took Amelia's hand and held it tightly. That hand trembled, not from fear, but because within it lay the past, the present, and a future just beginning to unfold. A year had passed since Wings of Light. Spring had returned to Florence, carrying soft sunlight and distant church bells. The Moretti villa was no longer a refuge for sorrow. It had become a home of art and hope. The large garden behind the house had been transformed into an art therapy center where patients from across Italy came to heal through music, painting, and movement. A stone plaque at the entrance read, La Casa della Luce, the House of Light. In the courtyard, Sofia was teaching a small group of students simple arm movements. She laughed brightly, her golden hair catching the morning sun. No one saw her as disabled anymore. She was a living symbol of strength and grace. From the terrace, Luca Moretti watched quietly, pride in his eyes. He was no longer the man imprisoned by grief. He was a builder again, of places, of lives, of love. That afternoon, the sunlight filtered through the olive trees, painting gold across the stone path. Inside the villa, Amelia was arranging picture frames. The walls were filled with photos of smiling patients and joyful moments. At the center hung a large photograph, the three of them, Luca, Sofia, and Amelia, from the night of the performance. Luca entered, holding a small white envelope. He stopped behind her, his voice gentle. "Amelia, today's a special day." She turned, smiling. "What day is that?" "The day I realized that sometimes light doesn't just fall from the sky, it shines from a person." Amelia laughed softly, though her eyes shimmered. "You sound like a philosopher in an architect's coat." He smiled and handed her the envelope. "No, today I'm just a man, wanting to say something I should have said long ago." She opened it. Inside was a small card with 4 simple words in Italian. "Vuoi danzare con me?" "Will you dance with me?" When she looked up, Luca was kneeling, holding a simple ring that glimmered in the sunset. Sofia appeared at the door, her face glowing. "I told you! I knew you'd do it!" she exclaimed. Amelia covered her mouth, tears spilling. "Are you sure?" Luca's voice grew husky, filled with emotion. "More sure than I've ever been. You helped me rebuild the ruins in my heart. Today, I want to build a new home with you, not of stone, but of love." Amelia laughed through her tears and nodded. "Yes, Luca, I will." A week later, the wedding took place in the villa's garden. No luxury, no grand stage, just sunlight, music, lavender, and love. Sofia guided the wheelchair carrying the bride down the flower-lined aisle. Guitar music mingled with birdsong. When Luca and Amelia exchanged rings, Sofia held both their hands, her voice trembling with joy. "Dad once told me that light can shine through any crack. Today, I see it's true." The three embraced. Guests applauded, some wiping tears. Amid the golden glow, Amelia looked up. A thin white cloud drifted across the sky, like the veil her mother once wore. Luca leaned toward her and whispered, "See? The light always finds its way back." Amelia smiled, squeezing his hand. And Sofia, amidst laughter, tears, and sunlight, whispered softly, "This isn't just a wedding, it's the beginning of a new family." As the sun set over Florence, the three of them danced in the garden, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the warmth of love. It wasn't a perfect dance, but it was the dance of 3 souls healed by each other. Inside the villa now called La Casa della Luce, the light burned on, gentle, endless, a quiet flame that whispered one truth: love, once awakened, never dies.